the question I was asking myself for a long time before I was able to kind of figure it out. And the truth is, like, each person is different. Everybody is eating that way or behaving that way for their own reasons. So for some people, something that worked for one person might not work for another person. But overall, this is where teaching people really comes into play.
Today I'm joined by Naomi Wright. Naomi Wright is a personal trainer and she's working out of North Carolina. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And do you work online and in person or just online?
I recently transitioned to just online training.
Excellent. So about you, tell me about your practice.
So I'm a NASM certified personal trainer and nutrition coach. I've been a certified personal trainer since 2017 and a certified nutrition coach since 2021. So I have been training people of all ages and all types of gym settings for years. I started off with actually boxing and kickboxing, and training wise. Personally, I was lifting long before I became a trainer. And then I transitioned more towards the lifting when I stopped training in the boxing gyms, started training in some commercial gyms, and then eventually switched over to just running my own business where I was renting a private gym and training people online on the side. Within the past couple months, I've transitioned to strictly online, where I sell some high ticket programs for people that are trying to lose weight without dieting and learn how to structure their own weightlifting programs to reach their own goals so that they don't need to be working with a trainer or a nutrition coach or nutritionist long term, and then to actually see those results, last long term as well. So I'm really teaching people the process as well as training them as we go.
And I definitely want to get into that because that's really important, is to not make people dependent on us as trainers, to actually show them how to empower them so they can do it themselves. That's great. We'll definitely get into that. And just so people know, she mentioned she's a NASM trainer. That stands for National Academy of Sports Medicine. That is a certifying company for personal trainers. It's regarded as the best. So there's no doubt that Naomi knows a lot about fitness. So we're going to get into that today. Let's talk about you to start. What has worked for you on your own fitness journey?
So initially when I started, I got into lifting in general because I was a volleyball player for 10 years. So when I started playing for high school, they would have us weightlifting on the side, conditioning so that we'd be better on the court. I really didn't like it then, actually. I didn't know why I was doing the lifts that I was doing. I didn't understand the purpose. And so it really felt like a chore for me. It was painful. I didn't see the gains, the pros of doing the lifts. We also weren't on a structured program. We had a lifting coach that we would see a couple times a week, and he would just put, I don't know, maybe there was actually structure to it, but not enough structure that we were seeing results from it long term. It just kind of felt like it was on the schedule and that's what we had to do. And so I really didn't like it. During that time, I was also doing some MMA by myself, just outside for fun, to learn how to kickbox. And honestly, I had seen it as a good type of workout for like getting abs, like burning that fat. And so for me, that's what I wanted, because I was like skinny fat at the time, because along with that lifting that I was doing for the volleyball, nobody was telling us what to do with our nutrition. So like, there was no muscle tone there. Even if I was losing weight, it was kind of just cardio all the time, even if we were lifting. So when I started that MMA, I actually got really, really lean. I loved it. And I found a gym that was hiring trainers. At the time, I had been studying to work at LA Fitness as a trainer there, and went the kickboxing route instead. While I was training there, that's when I started learning about like nutrition for myself. So I was teaching people how to box and how to kickbox, but on the side, I was working on my weightlifting and my nutrition and experimenting with it while I was in there doing the kickboxing as well. That's where I like really, really got into it. I lost a ton of weight. I got super shredded. But honestly, it was to the point where it was unhealthy for me. And nobody else could see that. Everybody saw me as like the very fit trainer that everybody wanted to be like. Everybody wanted to eat clean like me and be as disciplined like me. But like at that point, it wasn't even discipline. It was more like I was doing it because I had to in order to maintain the physique that honestly, I look back on those photos now and I'm like, I might have been able to compete with that physique, but I didn't see it because I had so much body dysmorphia and I was deep in eating disorders. Everything I was doing, I felt like wasn't good enough. And so that's like, I started taking my own personal clients at that time. And that's when I started noticing that there was an issue because there was things that I was doing that I was telling my clients, do not do this, do not eat this way, do not work out this way, do as I say, not as I do. And that's when I was like, okay, well, what I'm doing, I'm trying to look like these other people that are, very famous influencers that have the bodies that everybody wants. And I started realizing that it's not the case for everybody, but we all have different lifestyles. We all have different genetics as well. And for me personally, achieving a physique like that, it wasn't attainable without doing very unhealthy things. And I realized that my clients, who also were on social media, had the same ideas as I did. And that's around the time when I became a certified nutrition coach because I realized that there was this whole other aspect to the business that I wasn't able to be providing to my clients or myself, even because I didn't have the knowledge yet to understand that there's more to this industry than just trying to be as lean as possible or lift the heaviest weight possible or something like that. So once I became certified nutrition wise, I learned about how important it is to have like the right amount of calories to be fueling your body, as well as like where macros came in. I understood that a bit before, but like I really got into it once I learned more about nutrition. And that's where everything kind of started changing from like everything was before in a restriction and I wasn't allowing myself to eat what I want. I wasn't allowing myself to go out and do the things that I wanted because I had to be in the gym all the time. And then I was like, wait, I think I'm working harder than I need to be working. So I started making some shifts for myself with my macros and my calorie intake. And I started actually achieving like a healthier physique for myself that I actually enjoyed more than what I was doing before because it was not sustainable for me to be doing what I was doing before. And realistically, the people on Instagram, it's not sustainable for them either. And if you watch them over time, the things that they're posting when they're like at their top tier physique, like they are reposting that stuff over and over. They're not maintaining that long term. And that's something that you don't see when it's social media. So once I realized that I was actually feeling better about myself, my body dysmorphia was going away, that like need to get in the gym or that need to like not eat certain things, or not feel bad about eating certain things afterwards, that's where I was like, okay, this is what I need to be showing my clients. And there's a huge mindset shift that has to happen here in order to do that. Because when I was first trying to show my clients, like, hey, you just got to eat more, nobody wanted to do it. Everybody was too scared to be eating more. Everybody was too scared to be working out less. So over time, working on like, how can we change our mindset around this? Because the mindset that I personally learned around fitness and weight loss and all of those things, I grew up with a mom and a grandmother that were both on Weight Watchers and fen and just diet after diet. Nothing was ever good enough for them. It was cardio all the time. They weren't attractive unless they were in a diet. And so that was how I learned it. And I feel like that's what a lot of the fitness industry pushes, maybe without even meaning to. So I think a lot of my clients grew up that way too, and teaching them that we need to eat and going on diets the way that my family was doing it and that what I was doing as well growing up, that hurts your metabolism. That actually makes it harder to reach the goals that you're trying to reach. And you have to, if you've been in that state of dieting for like, I don't know, 5 years or something, it's going to take at least, 1 to 2.5 years to undo everything that you were doing and then work your way back up from there in a healthier way that you can actually maintain and sustain long term.
Right, because a diet is not meant to be long term, right? If that's what we're talking about, something that's, are you referring to something that's temporary, something that is meant to, like you said, not be sustainable over time? But yeah, sorry, go ahead, finish that point, and then I want to ask you about the difference between dieting and what you started doing. But go ahead.
I was actually just about to get
Okay,
into
yeah,
that.
let's talk about it.
So, what I've been teaching now, what worked for me was an actual lifestyle change, not a diet. So, when you're in a diet, that's something that you're supposed to be doing for a specific amount of time, depending on your goals, maybe like 3 months on average. And then after your diet, you're supposed to switch to maintenance, or what a lot of people do is they just go back to what they were doing before, and that's why they gained the weight back and it didn't work long term and they have to restart it. Now, doing a lifestyle change, teaching people how to fix their metabolisms after being in a state of lack for so many years, um, that teaches you how to find balance in your life, how to actually eat to fuel your body without overeating or undereating. You know, like for example, if you want to be putting on muscle, you eat, I don't know, depends where you're at, roughly the same, but you increase your protein, right? You want to lose weight, you eat a little bit less, but you still probably increase your protein. And you want to keep that high protein diet. You want to stay within a certain amount of calories over time and then just adjust it by maybe 200, give or take at a time, depending on what your current goals in life are. But longer term, you want to be sticking to that lifestyle change. For example, before when I was on a diet all the time, I was in this restriction phase where I was maybe 95% eating clean, 5% not eating clean, and it would lead to a lot of binge eating for me. Whereas now I eat more of like a 70-30, where 70% of the time I'm eating clean, 30% of the time I'm eating not clean, whatever that means for you. So it's not me having cheat meals on the weekends and binging super hard and doubling my calories in 2 days for the whole week. It's, I want pizza on Tuesday night. I'm going to eat clean. Wednesday, Thursday, I want some ice cream after dinner. Like, just here and there, allowing myself to have what I want instead of restricting, and really changing that mindset around what foods are good and what foods are bad, because that's a part of the like restrictive diet mindset. As long as you're telling yourself that those Oreos are bad and that you're not allowed to have those Oreos, the next time you go to have one Oreo, you're going to be like, oh my God, I need to eat all of them because this is like, I'm not allowed to eat these normally. Instead, switching that mindset to like, this is just a food, just like any other food, and I will allow myself to eat this whenever I want to eat this, it really changes things. It really makes you feel like you don't have those cravings anymore, as well as something that I've noticed within myself and my clients. Once you get to a certain point with your training as well, you don't want to be, you don't have those cravings to be binging the way that you were before. If you're sticking to the longer term, just putting in that effort longer term, it's not worth it anymore.
Right. It's a great point, and in my experience as well, something I had to deal with a lot were people that were going to extremes either way. So being really restrictive with their diet some days, and then being the totally opposite on the other days, going hard again, binging on what they've been eating, what's not helping them. That was a challenge to get someone to go from that roller coaster, that extreme, to being more kind of consistently kind of in the middle, more moderate. How do you communicate that to somebody who's used to being extreme in that way, to kind of get them to be more in the middle with more of a balance, like you said? How do you, if someone who's not experienced that before, what was that mindset shift for you? How do you kind of help someone understand what that's going to be like?
I love that question, because that was the question I was asking myself for a long time before I was able to kind of figure it out. And the truth is, like, each person is different. Everybody is eating that way or behaving that way for their own reasons. So for some people, something that worked for one person might not work for another person. But overall, this is where teaching people really comes into play, because I feel like people are in that diet mindset or that binge mindset because that was just what we learned. I feel like, at least for my education system and a lot of the other my clients' education systems in the US, we were not taught actually how to be fueling our bodies or what we actually needed to be eating. That food pyramid just was not it for me or for anybody else. So kind of going back to square one with them and being like, okay, I'm going to teach you about the basics of what your body needs. the basics of what somebody your age and your height and your activity level, how much your body actually needs to be intaking to be working properly. Because it's about more than what your physique is looking like, right? It's about how it's affecting your hormones. It's about how it's affecting everything, your day to day, your mood. It's so much more than your physique. So first teaching them that, then teaching them the basics of macros as well, protein, carbs, and fat, and how each one is important in different ways, because carbs and fat have really been demonized, and they are equally as important as protein and everything else. So once you teach people why it's important, that starts making the mindset shifts for them, as well as telling them why their 1,200 calorie diet isn't working for them. Teaching them about the metabolism and how it actually creates this thing where your body holds on to the fat and burns the muscle instead. When they hear that, they're like, oh no.
Right.
So that's fun. As well as the binging specifically, it's been a huge thing. So I'm going to continue with the Oreo example. So one thing that I've done with a few clients that has worked for myself as well, actually, I tried it on myself first. I told them, like, this is for people who like can't even have Oreos in the house because they'll just eat the whole pack. I'm like, buy the Oreos, and then every day after dinner, have 3 to 5 Oreos. Even if you don't want them that day, have them every single day. And over time, that mindset of that being a bad food that you're not allowed to have, it starts shifting. Especially when you don't even want to be eating it and you're still eating like a few here or there. It also kind of teaches you how to not binge it, you know? And then there's other tips that we can do for that, like not eating snacks straight out of the bag and things like that. But it's a process over time. And once people hear, like they learn it, but then they actually start applying it and actually seeing the results, that's where you like really change people's lives, because it's something that we just were never taught. So how do you know unless you're taught?
I love that, and I've not heard of that strategy to have a few even if you don't want to. That's very interesting. Maybe I'll try that myself. That's a really cool little trick. I think would be very interesting to try. And I'm smiling while I'm listening to this story because it's reminding me so many times of people that have come to me saying, I don't want to know why about any of this. Just tell me what to eat. And it's difficult to get someone to want to learn about nutrition and to get an education about it, because in the end, that's what really helps, right? The difference between anyone else and a personal trainer or a certified nutrition, whatever, there are many different nutrition certifications, is experience, yes, but education, really, that's a big difference, right? If you know how to eat in any scenario, if you know why you're eating, what you're eating, that's a huge help.
I can't think of the actual saying, but like catch a fish for somebody, you feed them for a day, teach them how to fish, you feed them for a lifetime.
Yes. Right. That's actually why I reached out to you, because you seem like someone who's giving somebody the fishing rod, not the fish. And that's much more valuable, obviously, because they can make their own decisions from there and they can make an educated decision. That's great.
Well, I don't believe in nutrition plans anyway. Well, not nutrition plans, of writing somebody a direct, like, this is exactly what you have to eat, because they're not, like, you get tired of eating those things. And that's kind of where binging can happen again as well, if you're just like stuck in the same rigid diet all the time. So instead, teaching people about macros and what the plate should look like, break down between protein, carbs, and fat, and building a plate around your protein, that's a lot easier for somebody to stick to longer term, because you can do a lot more things with it than just like this 8 ounces of chicken and half a cup of rice.
Sure. And life happens, right? If I have a strict nutrition plan and I wasn't expecting for something to happen this day where I have to leave the house or something, I have to go out and get food elsewhere. Oh gosh, I can't stick to this nutrition plan. Now I have to make my own decisions. And then life happens, right? I absolutely agree. Being too rigid on workout plans as well, nutrition plans for sure as well. But we need to learn how to be flexible and use what we've learned to adapt to wherever we are, right? So tell me about weight loss without dieting. What does that mean?
Absolutely. So it really goes hand in hand with the lifestyle changes that you're teaching people. Instead of having them lose weight on a diet, teaching them how to lose and then maintain whatever weight they're trying to sit at. So this nutrition is one aspect of it where, you know, I'm teaching people about their macros and their calorie intake, but where the weight loss comes in is putting them in a calorie deficit. Now, on average, depending on your age, your height, your weight, your activity level, typically you'd want to be around 2,000 calories to be maintaining where you're at. If you want to lose weight, where diets typically tend to put you is around a 1,200 calorie diet. That's an 800 calorie deficit. 1,200 calories, there's no adult that should be eating 1,200 calories for any reason. That's like a toddler's caloric intake. So teaching people instead to cut their calories by like 100 to 200 at a time and do it slowly over time, as well as slowly increasing their protein intake at the same time. That is what the diet side of weight loss without dieting is. Now, the reason why we're increasing the protein at the same time is because you need to be doing this hand in hand with a training program. The training program's purpose is to be building muscle. So the reason why we're trying to build muscle is because muscle is more dense than fat, as well as it burns more calories at rest than fat does. So if you're increasing your body's muscle composition, you're actually able to burn more calories while just sitting on the couch than if you were 100 pounds of muscle, or I don't know, 75 pounds of muscle and 15 pounds of fat. You're going to be burning more calories at the 100 pounds of muscle than at the other composition with more fat. So the goal here, end game goal, is to put on more muscle so that you can actually still lose weight while eating enough, if not more than you were eating beforehand. So that increasing that protein intake is what's going to help you build that muscle. So the training side of it, in order to actually be doing this with your training program, you need to be doing progressive overload with heavy weights. Now, some people don't like heavy weightlifting, and sometimes there's, you know, health reasons or other reasons why they can't be, but ideally in a perfect world, you want to be lifting very heavy weights and you want to be progressing that weight load every week. So, well, not the weight load. You want to be progressing in some way every week with progressive overload. So one week that might look like increasing the weight by 5 pounds. Another week that might look like increasing the rep range or getting better at your form. So progressive overload each week is improving something about the lift that you're doing. So typically for my clients, I put them on 4-week programs at a time. And we don't jump around between random workouts like you see on Instagram. We stick to one repeatable, buildable program of the same exercises over and over and over, and just improving the form, improving the reps, improving the weight. And then we touch base after 4 weeks. Hey, how did that go? How did that feel? And then we start over again with another program in another 4 weeks and go from there.
Wow, you said a lot there, and a lot of what you said is exactly how I've explained it to people too, is how building muscle is going to affect so much their program as far as burning calories goes. This is good. So progressive overload, meaning you're taking, like you said, a program that's already been practiced so far, but you are progressing it in a way where you're not changing the entire thing, you're not changing the movements per se, but you're changing training variables, right? So the way I understand training variables are, if you want to do the same exercise but still progress with it, there are variables you can manipulate as you go, such as reps, sets, we have tempo, we have rest time, and then if you wanted to change the move, that would be exercise selection. So you don't need to be doing a bunch of different exercises in your program, right? You can progress the same ones by changing these training variables. That's how you do it.
Absolutely. Actually, my programs are pretty basic lifts, just performed over and over while improving the quality of the lift over time. Now, there are at the restart of every 4 weeks, we're typically not going to be, if we were working on squats for the first 4 weeks, we're typically not going to be working on squats at least in the same way the next 4 weeks. If we were doing barbell back squats for the first 4 weeks, we might be switching to maybe some sort of goblet squat or front squat or hack squat to be working with in the next 4 weeks. But the basics of it stays the same, where we're still working on squats, for example.
Certain things work, and that's why we use them. There's no reason to change something so good as a squat if it works really well, right? I like to try stuff maybe that's not traditional like a squat for fun, but there is no substitution for basic movements that have proven to work over and over and over, such as squats, such as other classic lifting techniques. Um,
I
yeah. Can you help those that may be watching that are still maybe a little bit apprehensive about lifting heavy? They're concerned about getting too big or bulky. Can you help them get through that a little bit? Explain how that's not something to be concerned about?
Absolutely. That's something that when I first started my career, I would hear a lot from the females. But now that people have seen, my befores and afters from myself and my clients as well, they understand that that's not what we're doing here. But it definitely is a concern. So I always tell, especially my females, because this tends to be something that I hear from females more than anything, I tell them to think about men and think about how much time, effort, food, supplements that it takes these men to look the way that they look and how many years it took them to get that far. And that's a man, that's somebody that naturally has more testosterone, is better at building muscle than females, anyways. Now, if you want to be getting bigger like that, that's my goal right now. That's why I look the way that I do, but I didn't always look this way. And it's taken me like 6 years to get even as big as I look right now. Very, very intentionally. So if you want to get big, it's possible, but it doesn't happen overnight. It definitely takes a lot of time, a lot of consistency, a lot of repetition. So lifting heavy weights doesn't make you big. It actually will do that thing where girls are always like, oh, I just want to tone up. I just want to be tight and toned. That's what lifting weights will do for you. And then if you want to get bigger than that from there, that's where you start playing with your protein intake, your calorie intake, your supplements. But just lifting and increasing your calories a bit or increasing your protein a bit to get your metabolism back on track is actually going to help you look more toned, less skinny fat, and more toned.
Right. 100% agree. I think it takes a bit of a leap of faith for people to, if they've not experienced that, to trust that and do that, because they might see people who are big lifting heavy, and that works for them because of the reasons you mentioned. There's a lot of different things going on for them, and also they're eating bigger, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So the way I like to say it, it's kind of like you can't build a house without bricks, right? If you're not giving your body the calories it needs to get that big, it won't get there, and other things will happen instead if the diet is right, especially, and all the other factors, hormones, genetics, lifestyle, things like that will matter so much in that process. I think that's really good.
I love progressive overload. I feel like I could talk about it forever.
So
I
so
think
yeah, help me. I'm a beginner and I don't know what progressive overload is. I don't know what that looks like. Um, what does that look like? What does that process mean?
so. The process of progressive overload, you can start at any level of like weightlifting. You can be a beginner, you can be a professional. It doesn't matter. You find your starting point and you work from there. So, for example, let's use an example of somebody that has never lifted weights before in their life, and we're gonna help them squat. So, the first week, I would teach somebody how to squat with progressive overload by like having them body weight squat on a bench. Sit down on that bench, stand back up. Do it like 10 times. The following week, if that was fine for them, doing it 3 sets of 10 times, body weight squats on the bench, the following week, we might add a dumbbell to it and have them do the same thing 10 times, maybe less reps, maybe 8 times, but we were improving that squat by adding that dumbbell. Now, the following week, we will take the dumbbell away, but we'll also take the bench away. So it's body weight, but now we're squatting without that bench. So we're taking away some of that extra support that you had. Now, if that went well, the following week, we might add that dumbbell back again, but now no bench. We're squatting with the dumbbell, no bench at all. Now, the thing about progressive overload, though, is like that's like a perfect world where you're able to like progress every single week. That doesn't always happen. Diet, lifestyle, things happen. So let's say my progression that I was trying to do that week, I wasn't able to do it. I was too tired or whatever. That's fine. then you go back to what you were doing the week before and you do it again, exactly what you were doing the week before, and you hope that it comes out better this time so that the following week you're able to progress it from there. Now, 3 weeks down the line, if you're still not able to progress anything at all, then there's another issue going on where you might have to reevaluate your diet, your lifestyle, your training plan, something like that. Plateaus are normal as well. Your body adjusts and then you have to go from there. So my personal experience with progressive overload, though, if you are progressing for 3 weeks and then that fourth week you do a deload week, you don't really hit plateaus. In my experience, I haven't. And I was actually able to go from deadlifting 185 pounds last January to finishing out the year with a 315 deadlift, which is like an insane strength gain for me personally. That was the biggest like growth I've done in 1 year. And it was just because I followed that plan. 3 weeks of progression, 1 week of deload. Sometimes if my body needed more rest, I would take it. You have to listen to your body. But generally that's what progressive overload would look like for me or for my clients.
So it doesn't have to be complicated. Look at all the different ways you can perform the same squat type movement to continue progressing along your program and continue getting results, right? But you touched on your program and how you keep track of that. How do I keep track of my program? Am I going to, obviously, as a personal trainer, I know the value of having a personal trainer. I had one when I started out, and yep, good for sure. If I've been doing this alone, or if I'm a beginner and I've been doing this alone, how do I make sure I stick to that? Am I getting a personal trainer? Am I using a diary? Both? How would you have someone do that?
Well, hands down, I always recommend the trainer route. Like, there is never a time where I would not recommend that. I think even trainers need trainers. And this whole progressive overload that I did last year was actually me training myself and writing a program for myself for the first time. I had never done that before, and that made a huge difference for me. Now, before that, like I had mentioned, I was even working with a trainer myself, because even if you watch these videos and you watch things on Instagram or on YouTube that are teaching you how to get this physique that you might want, it's not personalized for you. The only time that you can find somebody that's actually doing something personalized for you and your specific goals is if you're working one-on-one with a trainer or a coach that's going to do that for you. Now, I don't think that every trainer is right for every person. Personally, I would recommend a trainer like myself that would teach you how to structure that program, how to track that program, how to do progressive overload with it, and build from there, as well as why the program is set up the way it is so that you can continue making your own programs after that. Now, if it's like just totally unattainable, you can't get a trainer or a coach right now, then yeah, journaling it out is going to be the best bet. When I was first starting out, I would have to write down my workouts before I went into the gym every time, because if I didn't have it written down beforehand, it wasn't going to work. And one of the problems that I get, or one of the complaints that I get from people that do that, is like, oh, well, what if I'm in there and the machine that I wrote down is being used? That's fine. Now you have a whole written program that you can jump around and come back with. Whereas if your machine was used and you didn't have a written program, you go and do something else, you might not remember to go back to that other one. As well as you need to be tracking your actual progress if you are doing progressive overload. So you have to be writing it down somewhere, whether that's your trainer writing it down for you or you writing it in your notes app or a journal. If you are experienced with the gym, I'm sure you've seen people walking around with their journals, writing in their journals in between sets. That's because they're actually tracking their program.
Right. And an important point too, if I've seen people run into that where they're like, oh, the plan today was to use the leg press, but the leg press is being used. Someone's on it all day. What do I do? That's another reason to work with a trainer so they can help you understand the alternatives to some exercises. If for example, the machine's being used and you want to stick to that program as best you can, you should know the alternatives. What is a similar movement? What body parts are you working, right?
That huge. That's something that I think that you can't get unless you're working with the trainer. Right. For example, put my clients on the leg press, I will tell them, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it. This is what we're trying to grow. That's why we're doing this reps. That's why we're doing this tempo. And then from there, they can be like, okay, well, that was taken. So I'm going to do a similar exercise that's working the same muscles same amount of reps, same amount of tempo, whatever. But they wouldn't know that otherwise unless there was one of us there to tell them that that's why they're doing it.
Right. Yes. Be open to learning something new from a pro who's doing it, knows how to do it themselves. Very good. So now that you've been working as a trainer, you're certified, you're experienced now, what are some things that people ask you frequently or have asked you in the past that you feel like you have a better way of answering now? Help the audience out. What are some things that people are asking that you think you can address?
The biggest thing that I have been asked over and over and over again is how can, like from the females, how can they lose body fat, specifically belly fat? Wait. Oh my God. I have too many now. They're all coming to me. But this one specifically, how can my females target their fat loss in their stomach and grow their butts at the same time? For a while, I actually just recently did a rebranding. For a while, I was specifically only training females online that were trying to do specifically that. Lose the body fat and grow the booty at the same time. But there was huge mindset shifts that have to happen within that, because in order to lose body fat and grow a muscle at the same time, I mean, there's a lot of trainers that will tell you that that's not even possible. That is possible through body recomposition, but it's a pretty slow process, and it's also not the process that most of these people want to be taking in order to be reaching that goal. But it's pretty much the only one that's going to get you there naturally, you know. So
I want to know.
The first thing that I always tell people, you can't target fat loss. I get that all the time. And so my response to them is, were you able to choose where your fat went when you were eating that food? Were you able to put it in your butt specifically and take it out of your stomach? No. So you can't choose where you lose it either. There's no ab exercises that are going to give you a flat stomach. Another thing, abs are kind of made in the kitchen, not 100%, but like more than 50%. So just telling people that you can't target that fat loss, but you can lose fat and grow muscle at the same time through body recomposition. Body recomposition, for people that don't know, it's another way to kind of tone up, gain muscle at the same time. Same thing that we've been talking about, weight loss without dieting. There's one route that bodybuilders will take where they go through like a cutting phase and a bulking phase, usually 3 months, or 6 months, 6 months. But body recomposition takes about the same time, like 6 months to a year, depending on your goals. But you're not doing that diet phase or that restrictive cut and bulk that can lead to eating disorders and body dysmorphia and things like that. Instead, you're learning how to make these shifts over time to be putting on the muscle, like we said, and losing that fat at the same time, because that muscle is going to burn more calories at rest than the fat will. So, spot reducing fat is like the biggest thing that I get.
Beautiful. And another time where you're phrasing it very similar to how I would phrase it to people. We don't decide where the fat goes. Well, it just does, right? Yes, exactly. Yeah. But you know what? That the way you phrased it is not this is the nerdy trainer side of me, but like that wasn't in NASM training. That was just, I think that's just coincidence, really. The way you're putting it is the way I put it over the years. I really like that.
I think it's an experience thing. You know, earlier you had mentioned that like education is more important than experience. And on the nutrition side of things, 100% agree. But on the trainer side of things, I actually think it's the opposite. Because when I was a fresh new baby trainer, straight out of NASM, I had the impression that I was just going to be killing it with my clients right off the bat. And that was...
No,
it definitely took experience, a lot of different people to figure out exactly how to do it the way that I wanted to, you know?
Certainly. I don't mean to say that education is more important. Not like that. I just mean it's a component that's extremely important, but certainly experience. I mean, me too. I same experience with me is, you know, I got certified and I learned a lot. But then I had my first client and I'm like, oh, okay, now what do we do now? Where do I start? And eventually we got it, right? But
Right.
you know what's funny? Yeah, go ahead.
The clients I had are some of my like best success stories ever, but like it was just a little bumpy at first, but they trusted the process, they trusted me, and we got where they were trying to go, for sure.
There we go. Right. And another thing I hope people are getting out of this, and I'll mention this in other videos like I have before. But why are we doing this? Why is it so important that we know more about Naomi and how she does things? The point is the relationship, because what I found is like in the beginning of my career, the thing that I thought was most important when I started training people was I'm gonna figure out the best workouts in the world that nobody can find, that are just, I'm gonna put together the best one and they're gonna love it, and it's gonna be all about getting a workout that they can't find elsewhere. And that was good. I think I had good workouts, and I really tried to hone my craft over the years. But what I started to learn was what really people cared about was, yes, you have to have a good workout for sure, but having that relationship with a pro who's really doing well at guiding you along the way, that's what people like the most. They want to feel that connection, and things happen when you are in close contact with someone who really cares about your results. You just can't get that anywhere else. No matter how hard you try on your own, no matter what you learn, no matter what your experience is, things happen when you are close with someone who's walking the talk, first of all, but making sure that, you know, the accountability is there. And also, there are habits that I'm going to pick up just by being around you, whether or not you tell me to or not. And so I think that's priceless. It's really important that we have a relationship with people that are doing what we want to be doing. Whether or not they're teaching us directly or not, we'll pick up on those things. So people getting to know Naomi today, stay close. Create a relationship with her. Get to know her. She's going to help you out one way or another. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. So,
sure. And go out too. Anybody can give you a good workout. And I was exactly the same when I first started training. But I actually, now that I've been in the industry for a couple years, I will say that I think that it's more of a green flag for a trainer when they're not trying to reinvent the wheel, and instead they're very transparent about the basics and why the basics are working, and instead teaching you those basics instead of being like, no, we're not going to do that. I'm going to give you this crazy cool workout. It's going to make you sweat and throw up and poop yourself all at once.
Right.
That's not.
Yeah. Certain ways of training have stood the test of time for a reason. Definitely. And that's something that I had to learn too. You know, I there have been times where I tried to reinvent the wheel, and there's been times where I didn't, because I knew something worked. And more often than not, for sure, you realize there are things that that are very basic, that are very effective, and there's no reason to change them. So how can people connect with you? Where are you online? How do we find you?
The best place that you can find me is my Instagram. That's at fitwnaomi on Instagram. Through there, I have links to my website. That's www.fitwithnaomi.com. I'm also on TikTok at fitwithnaomi. But my Instagram is the #1 place where you can reach out to me, send me a DM, follow me, check out my content on there. There's lots of very useful tips and tricks on there.
All right, people, go find Naomi. You know where to find her now. And I'll be honest with you. I'm not working with a trainer right now, but if I was, I would absolutely hire you as a trainer. I think you know what you're talking about. I think you have a very healthy and good philosophy on training, and I know that you're helping a lot of people right now, and you're going to continue to do that. So thank you so much for speaking with me about this. I'm learning something from you today, and I appreciate that. And thanks for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome.